the team that benefited from Escobar's mistake was shocked by his death.
Complete lack of...
When a local radio announcer reported on the morning of July 2nd, 1994, that Escobar had been killed, listeners across Medellin assumed it was nothing more than a drunken mistake. They thought the broadcaster had accidentally read an old news bulletin about Pablo Escobar, the infamous drug kingpin and leader of the Medellin cartel, who had been killed just months earlier, in December 1993. But the shocking truth was far more tragic. The man gunned down that morning was Andrés Escobar, the 27-year-old central defender of Colombia's national team, who had returned from the 1994 FIFA World Cup in the United States just 9 days earlier. Few expected that the crime was linked to Colombia's disastrous World Cup campaign, but as the truth slowly emerged, an entire nation was consumed by grief. Andrés Escobar had paid with his life for an own goal in a game called football. That sorrowful evening, the world awoke to what would become the greatest tragedy ever to overshadow the FIFA World Cup. At the time, Colombia boasted one of the finest national teams in the world. Its squad was packed with extraordinary talent, including the legendary goalkeeper, René Higuita, the flamboyant shot-stopper who invented the iconic scorpion kick. Football legend Pelé even tipped Colombia to win the 1994 World Cup in the United States. Many called them Brazil without the history, a team that played with the same dazzling flair but lacked Brazil's legendary legacy. Colombian fans believed this was their moment, and that extraordinary squad became the nation's greatest source of hope. At the height of Colombia's brutal war against the drug cartels, and just before the team departed for the 1994 World Cup in the United States, defender Andrés Escobar stood before television cameras and delivered a simple but powerful message. We must stay away from violence. If we want to perform at our best, we have to keep our focus on football. He did not say those words lightly. In the aftermath of Pablo Escobar's death, Colombia had descended into a dangerous power vacuum. Rival criminal networks were battling to fill the void left behind, as a new generation of Escobars fought for control of the cocaine trade and the millions of dollars flowing through illegal betting on football matches. Fear and tension inside Colombia's training camp escalated when criminal gangs kidnapped the 2-year-old son of right-back Fernando Herrera, demanding a ransom before eventually releasing the child. Then, head coach Francisco Maturana and his assistant, Darío Gómez Jaramillo, better known as El Pecoso, received death threats. The warnings soon escalated, threatening to execute every member of the Colombian squad if defensive midfielder Gabriel Barrabás Gómez was included in the starting lineup. As a result, he was left out of Colombia's decisive showdown against the host nation, the United States. The decision was reportedly dictated by powerful gambling syndicates, determined to protect the fortunes they had riding on the match. By then, it had become clear that nearly $20 million had been wagered in Colombia's illegal betting market, closely tied to the country's drug lords, all backing a single outcome, a Colombian victory over the United States. With no other choice, Colombia's head coach was forced to leave Barrabás out of the must-win match. Later, striker Faustino Asprilla explained the decision to his teammates inside the dressing room. If Barrabás plays, they'll kill every one of us. The players still believed the match against the Americans would be an easy victory, and given the enormous gap in quality between the two squads, they had every reason to think so. Colombia dominated the first half, creating chance after chance and squandering 2 golden opportunities. Then, in the 35th minute, the match took a devastating turn. As the United States launched a dangerous attack down the left flank, John Harkes whipped a low cross towards striker Ernie Stewart inside the penalty area. Reading the danger, Colombia's rock-solid defender, Andrés Escobar, wearing the number 2 shirt that day, threw himself into a desperate slide to intercept the ball and send it out for a corner. But instead, The slightest touch redirected it past goalkeeper Oscar Cordoba and into Colombia's own net. After the catastrophic mistake, Escobar remained lying on the turf, his head buried in disbelief, as if, in that very moment, he already understood the weight of what had just happened and what it might ultimately cost him. The Colombian players threw everything they had into finding an equalizer, but the match had become far more complicated against a spirited American side, driven on by more than 80,000 fans packed into the Rose Bowl in Pasadena. They fought desperately to keep their World Cup dream alive, yet the fear that had haunted them since their opening match had already taken its toll. Their concentration had begun to unravel the moment U.S. authorities deployed heavily armed security teams and armored vehicles to guard the squad's hotel. Soon afterward, Colombian authorities placed the players' families under protection, fearing they could become targets for kidnapping or extortion. Then came another crushing blow. Early in the second half, Ernie Stewart scored the United States' second goal, leaving Colombia on the brink of elimination. Colombia did pull one back in the 99th minute through Adolfo Valencia, but it was too little, too late. Even their 2-0 victory over Switzerland in the final group match could no longer save their World Cup campaign. After Colombia's first-round elimination, head coach Francisco Maturana resigned, choosing to continue his career in Spain. Fearing for their lives after receiving credible death threats, the players went into hiding. They were instructed to stay inside their homes and avoid going out under any circumstances. Years later, in an interview with a Spanish radio station in 2019, Faustino Asprilla recalled the chilling conversation he had with Andrés Escobar during the flight back to Colombia. On the flight home, Andrés came over to me and said, "Don't leave your house. There are real threats against us. Promise me you won't go out." I kept that promise. I stayed home, but he was the one who went out. What happened next is still impossible to comprehend. In the Colombian newspaper, El Tiempo, Andrés Escobar, the man many blamed for the team's elimination, published a heartfelt column in an attempt to calm the nation's growing anger. He wrote, "Life doesn't end here. We have to move forward. We must rise again, despite the difficulties. Please, let us remain respectful." He had no way of knowing that, for him, life would indeed come to an end because of that own goal. After spending 9 days in hiding, Escobar finally decided to step back into public life and enjoy a night out. It was the same man who had once spoken to the media with remarkable optimism, saying, "Unlike the brutal battles of the wild, there is no death in football. No one dies, no one kills. Football is about joy, nothing more." Nicknamed the Gentleman for his calm demeanor and sportsmanship, Escobar believed the danger had finally passed. That night, he went out with friends to El Indio nightclub. Before long, he became involved in a heated verbal confrontation with the Galan brothers, men widely suspected of having ties to the drug trade. They hurled insults at him. Among the words he heard was one that cut deeper than the rest: traitor. Escobar refused to respond. He brushed the insults aside and continued with his evening. Then, at around 3 o'clock in the morning, he said goodbye to his friends and walked alone toward the parking lot. Escobar approached the Galan brothers, hoping to understand why they had confronted him. Instead, a third man stepped forward, their driver, Humberto Muñoz Castro. He pulled a .38 caliber revolver from his truck and opened fire. 6 shots struck Escobar, fatally wounding him. Less than an hour later, he was pronounced dead at the hospital. According to eyewitnesses, the gunman shouted, "Goal!" After every shot he fired. 6 bullets, 6 cries of "goal," a chilling mockery of the 6 times the match commentator had shouted the same word after Andrés Escobar's own goal against the United States. The gunman was arrested shortly afterward and was later sentenced to 43 years in prison. As for Andrés Escobar, Colombia bid farewell to him with a massive public funeral, attended by more than 100,000 mourners. Across the nation, countless people grieved the loss of a man who had become far more than a footballer. Even the president of Colombia paid tribute to him, delivering a speech in his honor. In 2005, the killer was released after serving just 11 years behind bars. His release sparked widespread outrage among Escobar's family and across Colombian civil society. Despite the public anger, nothing changed. Years later, Andrés Escobar's father reflected on the tragedy that had taken his son's life. Andrés had reportedly been on the verge of signing for AC Milan at the request of Fabio Capello after the 1994 World Cup. He said, "My son was killed for nothing." Andres Escobar lost his life because of a football match. Today, a statue stands in Medellin, honoring the man whose dignity and sportsmanship outlived the tragedy that claimed him.